Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. It is a moderately cold Tuesday, and I'm recording late in the evening, just mainly because I've been playing Borderlands 2 and also dealing with the freaking craziness that is the Winter Soldier pack reveal. And so, needless to say, we're going to get in that, and that was going to be the topic of today's show. I did have this awesome show called Tellus and Why He's Awesome. So, unfortunately, that show will be after episode 100, because, of course, this is episode 99, and next episode is Ask Me Anything. And so, so get ready for that next week. That's coming. Also, just to straight up remind you that we do have a contest for my 100th episode, sponsored by eaglescollectibles.com. And so, as you know, you gotta go check them out. And you gotta check them out. Anyway, where is it? Here it is. All right, the spot. Here we go. Are you looking to keep a keen eye on your heroclix game? Visit eaglecollectibles.com, where we offer great prices for some of the game's best pieces, from SRs to LEs and unique items. eaglescollectibles.com, helping you build your winning collection. Okay, now let's get into pretty much my thoughts on the pack change, or the changes that are coming once you get your new starter from Winter Soldier. First off, when I saw everything, my first reaction was like, you got to be kidding me, right? The second response that came was, okay, I can sort of deal with this. The third response was, I think we can break some stuff now. And I'll be honest with I think we can break some stuff now might seem odd, because you're going to be like, okay, how can you break anything with there being less options? And that's sort of the thing, is by there being less options, there means that there is more things that sort of can come to the forefront. And you're like, okay, hold up, Dark Logos, this doesn't make sense. It's still not making sense. All right, let's be honest. Why were some teams that were min-max a little bit too strong? Yes, it was several different elements altogether, but I'm betting ATAs is one of them. Why is, people play Brother Voodoo even though he doesn't need Heroes for Hire, and they still put Heroes for Hire on him just so they can get that one additional movement to guarantee the mind control. And so really there's a lot of different things that when we look back at it, it's like, oh yeah, that was a little bit strong, probably because they had access to ATA. So anyway, let's get into some of the stuff here. First off is ultralight objects. That's just a joke. There's only one or two situations where this is actually a good thing. Number one is dealing with Absorbing Man, because then he gets no bonuses and absorbs nothing. Option number two is you really, 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 really need to ping somebody for 1 damage. And that's it. So other than that, this is not really a game changer. This is just sort of silly. Now, the changes to the ranges in which you can throw stuff, that sort of sucks, that a light is 6 and a heavy is 4. But they had to make the ultralight objects viable for a sniping option, which I don't like that, because what it really is telling us is, hey guys, we told you that we were bringing melee back, like Justin Timberlake was bringing sexy back, and just like him, I think we sort of blew up our own proposition just a little bit too much. And so that's how I'm feeling right now, is that they blew up their proposition about bringing Melee back so much that when they actually realized for them to bring Melee into a comparable fighting, I hate to say fighting position as range, that it would have to bring in, you would have to bring in some more range options. Unfortunately, they took in a lot of Melee's stronger options. Also, it just, the ultralight object powers up Pogs way too much, because now they can just pick them up. So I do like the fact that this does not count as hindering terrain, which is great. And but the one thing to consider is that it can still be eaten by what was it? I want to say Eat Man, but that's not it. It's what's that dude that was from Superman set? He's a Legion superhero member. Anyway, I forgot his name right now. Matter Eater Lad. There we go. Matter Eater Lad. I was going to say Eat Man. I was like, hold on, wait, that doesn't make sense. And also Cyborg Superman. So anyway, now I think nanobots would still work, but I might be wrong. Anyway, so that change, I feel, is, I mean, with changing the throwing object distance, it sort of sucked. But ask yourself, when's the last time you chucked a heavy? And it's probably been a while. All right, let's move on to the, hey, guess what? As long as you have two characters on the team, it's a theme team rule. That I sort of like, because now ruler and a couple other keywords like brute aren't screwed. Your Phoenix Force is now a complete theme team without having to put little poggy people and, well, not poggy people, without having to put little cheapo people on there to make themes. So that's great. What is not great, in my opinion, is in them simplifying everything. It's like, hey, guess what, buddy? You got a theme team. It just made some things like ridiculous. For their own example, the Cosmic theme team with both of a full powered Zoran and a full powered Galactus. That to me is stupid. That should have never existed. But it does. And so I think there should have been some limitations. But that's a whole nother story. But overall, I like the fact that, yay, as long as we all have the same keyword, we're a theme team, and it was more than two figures. So that's great. Okay, moving on to the theme team changes, that generics will not get theme prob. To me, that is, it's the final kick in the cojones to actually rein in generic keywords, but it doesn't kill generic keywords. What they really should have done is kept the prob and take away the map roll. Then that would have been the, yep, okay, we're getting you to back off a little bit. For the fact that non-generic keywords pretty much just stay the same, that they get their bonuses and they get their plus map, is great. I think the non-generic is still sort of, it didn't hurt like the top tier ones like martial artist and scientist and of course mystical and armors. It's like the small stepchild to scientist. But overall, what we are seeing is this: is that WizKids is admitting after how many years, all right, generic theme teams are a problem. Now, I will say this: they have legitimately multiple times have tried to address the issues of theme teams in the terms of generics, and I think this time they finally said, all right, we have just the right amount of water and the right amount of Kool-Aid to make it still a drink, but not necessarily a party favorite. This is also in response to I hate, well, no, it's not even hate to say it. The casuals have scored a grand victory. They are able to compete against the min-maxers on a comparable field. Unfortunately, the themey people, the casuals, have unleashed the unknown Kraken. And the unknown Kraken is what happens when Avengers is meta. What happens when X-Men is meta, or Fantastic Four, or insert your favorite group here. Then there's like, oh, well, I can't play that piece because he's good. Like, I hate the artificial hamstringing. Like, oh, all of a sudden, the thing that I want the most had happened, and my false sense of moral superiority is gone. Oh, to have it back, I must put something else there so that I might feel victimized. So, and I know some people might say that's not fair, but for some of the commentary that I've read, that's really what I think is just going to happen. Instead of people saying, hey, guess what? The weak got made strong. Some people were addicted to being weak and the pity that you get for being weak, and also some of the social nagging advantages that you get for being weak. Just saying. So anyway, back to actually making a point and not a rant. I think the biggest advantage that we see coming with this setup, that the fact that, hey, generics got nerfed, normal non-generic teams are great, is that when it comes to just like designing a solid team, if you have a few characters on your team, it will allow you to get a nice map roll, but it's not going to be as robust if you fully, cram as much stuff in as possible. But at the same time, teams are no longer based around, hey, I need to cram 18 guys in to be theme. So that part I do like. Going on to the ATA conundrum and what really is going to change things. The ATA limitation, making it so that you have to be on a theme team to use ATAs, is by far BS. By far BS. Now here's why I say that. I think what they're trying to do is limit min-max. This has nothing to do with theme teams, because again, you just need to have a theme team, generic or non-generic, to use ATAs. You can run a mystical team and have ATAs. Okay. You can run an Avenger team and have ATAs. If you're just like, man, I just want to play these 5 guys, you do not get ATAs. And that's a problem because of a couple of reasons. First off, where am I going to fill in points? And let's be honest, until I can just flat out play a resource and a relic based on points, I'm sorry, I'm always going to be short. I need some more pogs. Then we go into the, hey, guess what? Pogs are tactics. So are ATAs. I say no tactics. Now what am I going to do to fill in the rest of my points? I can't use relics. So now we have teams that are underbuilt by 4 or 5 or even 10 points. What are we going to do? What are we going to do to fill those points in, WizKids? Now, no. Is it WizKids' direct responsibility to say, hey, no matter what, we have a way for you to top off your points? No, it's not WizKids' responsibility, and that part also falls on team building. But also, we can see there's a lot of shortfalls coming. I would even more so say I would have liked it if this ATA change was coming, that non-generic theme teams wouldn't get ATAs but got everything else, because now what's going to happen is the new min-max is just going to be generics. They just move the bar over. Does that mean that there are teams that will not function If they, I mean, that if they're not keyworded, there's always going to be somebody who's going to prove me wrong. But what's going to happen is the meta always flows like water. It takes the path of least resistance, and in doing so, it's going to flow toward generic theme teams. We saw when theme teams came out. It's just history's just going to repeat itself again. They haven't fixed anything with the ATA nerf. Now, the big limitation, what I feel is that they want to make ATAs powerful, but they can't have too much wild card abuse like George did with his team. And like, for example, the GCPD ATA, it is a very strong team ability, but in combination with wild cards and several other effects that it wasn't designed to work with, guess what? You're in a lot of trouble. Just a lot of trouble. So I can see their concern. I can see why they wanted to make ATAs more special. But at the same time, all it really does is reward the theme team player. And I guess, again, this is where they're trying to leverage play back toward the theme team. But if they're trying to make non-generic theme teams meta, then they need to stop making print runs with characters with Justice League and Avengers and Fantastic Four, because those lineups get filled out really well. They're the core teams of both universes, and they have options, and you're not pointing people really toward other theme teams and making them viable. What you're really just saying is Avengers, not the team base, but just Avengers is meta. Justice League, not the team base, is meta. X-Men, not the team bases, is meta. Teen Titans, not the team bases, are meta. That's really all you're doing. You're just shifting it over, and you're not necessarily saying like, hey, guess what? If you play that fun, first generation Teen Titans team, it's really, strong and viable now against that min-max team. We took away all their dirty little tricks. It's like, really? You did? So anyway, ATAs, I feel, is the big mistake here, but I also see why they did it. And here's the advantage that comes out with it. The advantage with less options means that a whole lot of strong extremes were nerfed in the shin. They were just nerfed in the shin. I don't know how that works, but I'm sticking with it. Not only were they nerfed in the shin, they also are in a weird position, because now what we can say is, hey, I know if someone plays Ghost Rider and they really, really want to use that ATA on him, then they have to play him on a mystical team, or they have to play him on a Heroes for Hire team. And then that limits the deadliness. You can look at every ATA and can say like, oh, okay, this is going to be really, really annoying, but these are limitations, so I'm only going to face this. That means that they can't do that. Therefore, either this ATA is dead on arrival, or B, this ATA is in a very limited amount of option pool. And then you can just go from there. And that's where the problem comes in. And that's where the like, yay, a lot of stuff got kicked in the pants. So if you can find out like, oh, shoot, this one got kicked in the pants, this keyword got kicked in the pants, this one got kicked in the pants too, then you're like, okay, which ones hadn't gotten kicked in the pants hard? And you can move there onto that. And then you can also say like, hey, if these ATAs are strong and those figures got kicked in the pants, then guess what? If someone runs that, then I'm pretty sure that they're either, A, like I said, not going to have the ATA. If they're going to have the ATA, they're not as strong as they could have been. So that's just something to think about. Oh, man. Anyway, so what we're going to also look at is the relic roll change. The relic roll, you can just keep rolling for relics. And after I think, I had a conversation with MB Perk a while ago, I think after last year's Gen Con, and I said to him, relics are pointless. They're not point costed effectively. You're not guaranteed to pick them up, and resources are so cheap for the cost that it makes them pointless. It really does. And they're point costed differently. They're point costed completely differently. So it made no sense why they were mutually exclusive. And then lo and behold, here comes Sorcerer's World. Anyway, but the biggest element that I feel that WizKids finally admitted that there was a problem once they introduced resources into the meta was relics didn't have a place. And the only being able to roll for them once per game was a problem. And what was supposed to be point filler, yay, you got a temporary stat boost. Or not temporary stat boost. You got a lucky stat boost. And it's a once per game effect. Now is a like, oh shoot, I really, really, really need to get this item, and get it set up. Now, with that being said, what this new rules change does is make split lip obscene. Yes, that is the correct word. Split lip is now obscene because for you to continually, almost pretty much just about guarantee for no harm to yourself, that you're able to just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and trying to pick up an object without taking a token means that there is no risk whatsoever in running a relic outside of Starman. I know, but you're not going to play Starman or a bunch of anti-relic characters every game, are you? No, you're not. You might say like, yeah, Dark Logos I am, but you're really not. So what that means is split lip, you're going like, oh, Book of the Skull, this is awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. But what's also, a bit annoying is you have a character that has stealth on an object that cannot be destroyed and can choose to roll for it every turn for free and then be like, yeah, you know what, I didn't get it, that's fine, but I am going to shoot you from stealth. Like that to me is a problem. So that's the relic change can be nice. And then I think overall what we're going to end up seeing is just a bunch of people playing relics in a different format. Like I said, using that hindering terrain bonus, using it for stealth, using other effects that require you to be near an object or on top of the object or whatever. We're going to just see more of those pop up. And also considering with Sorcerer's World, we're going to see more and more relics show up. And so I think that this is a good thing and a bad thing. This would be great if split lip wasn't in the meta. I would say it would be completely balanced. The fact that split lip is in the meta is a huge problem. I think, actually, is this the last year for split lip at Worlds? Does he retire next year? I don't know. I might be wrong on that one. I don't quite remember if he came out before Gen Con or not. Anyway, that's going to be interesting how they rule Fear Itself, because I think Fear Itself was a set that really came out around that Gen Con time. Wrapped up around the Gen Con time. So, I have to think about that one. Anyway, so that relic change, just overall, I find as this is good. If split lip didn't exist, I would have felt a lot better. But there's you can't control that. Yeah, you really can't control that. So, yep. This is, well, that's mostly it. Let me see what time I'm at. Okay, I'm at 24 minutes. I can talk about Tellus for a little bit. Yeah. Also, I'll just hold the reservation. If there's anything else in the pack that I didn't talk about, uh, then yeah, I'm sorry about that. But I think the only thing I didn't cover is how you're counting your team members for the team prob or whatever. But I'm not going to even deal with that. Anyway, so let's get into Tellus and why Tellus is OP and some things that we can do to try to break Tellus just a little bit. First off, I think Tellus is one of those figures, along with White Witch and High Father, that's going to define the set. And I think also what WizKids did is bring some value back into the super rare slot, which, in all honesty, had been gone for a while. It just had. There's a couple of sets where super rares were okay, and if it wasn't for, let's be honest, if it wasn't for team bases, a lot of super rares would, no one would care about them at all. But they're on a team base, so I had to get them. So that's how I feel about. That's how I feel about a lot of the rare super rares and like Teen Titans and Wolverine and X-Men and even even Invincible Iron Man just a bit. But here, let's go ahead and read Tellus' ability that we're really focusing on. Link telepathically. Friendly characters within 4 squares can draw lines of fire and count range in squares from the square of any one friendly character within 4 squares of Tellus. Okay, so there's some things that you gotta be mindful that makes Tellus awesome. First off, Tellus has energy shield, super senses, and toughness, so he can take sort of a hit. He gets defend with the 18 on his last 2 clicks, and that's alright. What makes him really awesome is his alternating prob, so you know that every other click he has prob, and his full dial mind control. That part is very, very, very useful. Definitely considering that you start taking feedback over at 150 points and over. The TK, you can't really use Tellus' ability for the TK, so just be mindful of that, because you have to have line of fire to both the square, the object, or other person, and the square that you're targeting doesn't have Tellus' ability, so you can't use Tellus' ability with TK. So that sort of sucks. But the biggest thing that we're going to start looking at is when we're looking at Tellus, we're trying to improve several things. First off is range attacks, and that's the simplest one to look at. And to use a good example of trying to improve range attacks, we're going to look at Invincible Iron Man common. The Invincible Iron Man common is by far one of the most brokenest, line of firingest, orneriest heroclix that's been made in a long while. And second up is Cyclops, but really it's mainly Iron Man. And Iron Man has pretty much, I'm going to get you sucker mentality. He's going to shoot you as long as he can get range. The problem comes in, unfortunately, for Iron Man, is even though his movement is good and his range is really good, the fact that once he gets hit, he's pretty much stuck at 150, and trust me, you're not going to play him at 300. So how do we compensate for this? Well, we use Tellus. We just, scuttle up Tellus, to the proper position, make sure that whoever else that needs to be in a position is also up, is where they need to be, and then you just running shot into 4 squares of Tellus and then draw range from Tellus, or another figure 4 squares further up, which pretty much means that you've covered the other end of the map with a 16. Yeah, just about, like a 16 range. You've just about covered the whole map. Now, what does this mean? This means, like, yeah, you can't run from Iron Man, but we can also see, like, just straight up, by having Tellus has kept Iron Man a good distance away from the opposition at max 16 squares, which 16 swing is really, really hard to do in heroclix until Tellus came about, because you would have to normally like pack TK plus have a good movement plus have a good range. And Tellus really just says, nah, son, I just need to have good range. Now, the other cool thing is that if we use Tellus properly, we can make sure that we can use him as a fill gap to make sure we get that alpha strike. So we have a couple of characters in position. Your opponent moves up out of first turn immunity, and they're trying to get a good edge on you. You just say like, hey, you counted squares properly. I can't shoot you. You can't shoot me. But I'll just move Tellus up, perplex my range, and I'm within 4 squares of Tellus, and now now I can shoot you because now I've gained 4 or 5 more squares of shooting. So that's something else to think about, is that Tellus artificially increases our range for an attack to allow us to get a first hit in, where our opponent may have been very meticulous about their placement and whatever, but eventually they have to come out. Tellus really allows you to be in a position where if your opponent doesn't come to you, you can gradually move up and come to them and still be safe. So that's the offensive way. Next up is defensively, and this is where it starts getting silly, because technically you can use Tellus's ability with barrier and smoke cloud and effects like that. So let's go to Shadowlass, and we can look at Shadowlass's ability. And Shadowlass can use smoke cloud for free, and then characters within the smoke cloud that are friendly can't have lines of fire drawn to them from opposing characters. And characters that are opposing characters inside of smoke cloud can't draw a line of fire out, or I think have line of fire drawn to them. I'm sort of going off the top of my head right now because I am slightly rushing because it is a tad late. And I gotta be at work really, really early. Anyway, Shadowlass can use smoke cloud. Friendly characters that can occupy squares within these markers can't have lines of fire drawn to them, and opposing characters that only occupy squares with these markers can't draw lines of fire. So yeah, they can't just draw lines of fire out, which means this can be a horrible, horrible day if you're able to put the smoke cloud underneath a stationary attacker. So that's just something to think about in the future. But anyway, going back, imagine that your opponent is thinking like, okay, next turn I'm going to have my green arrow with range combat expert light up your Tellus, and you're like, nope, that's not going to happen. I have Shadowlass I'll have Shadowlass use Smoke Cloud. She's going to target through Tellus and through the Pog Man. And then I'm going to put, using my 6 range, I'm going to put Smoke Cloud underneath you, Green Arrow. It's like, no, I can't shoot you. Like, well, yeah, that's the point. So Smoke Cloud, Barrier, and effects like that all of a sudden become very great defensive options when using Tellus, because you can say, hey, what's one of my bigger problems? My defensive figure in the back is my defensive figure in the front is always getting shot or destroyed or whatever else. You can say like, well, hey, maybe I can put my support figures in the back. They can still serve a role to protect the front lines while at the same time being in a safe distance from my opponent. Now, the big thing I will say is this: just like with the Nightcrawler tech, the closer your opponent gets, the weaker Tellus's trait becomes. I'm going to say that again. The closer your opponent gets, the weaker Tellus's trait becomes. And you're like, well, hey, Dark Logos, that doesn't make sense. You know, you can still get around walls and blah, 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 this, that, and that. Yeah, yes, you can. I know that. But here's the issue. Okay? and I'm just going to say it bluntly. Tellus is there to create distance. If the distance is shrunk, that means the amount of pressure that your opponent can put on you is greater. And for you to maintain the equal amount of force that you had before, it will require you to fall back. And fall back, and being able to fall back may not be as easy as you so desire. And if you fall back, that means that depending on your team, you only can fall back so many times. And if your opponent has any sort of teleportation tech, guess what? You are hosed. Okay, you're just straight hosed. There's nothing you can do because falling back doesn't do you any good. So we can't be delusional. We have to remember Spiral still exists. Is she as broke as she was when she came out? No, but she's still strong. Okay. We also have to remember that Shatterstar tech is not dead. Okay, and then of course we add in Calibex. So there is a lot of teleportation tech still out there in the meta, and you just can't be thinking like, oh, I'm going to fall back. It's going to be real easy. So anyway, going back, you can see how the defensive options are really good. Definitely when it comes to terrain, it's great. Next up, we're going to look at shenanigans, and this is the part where I encourage you to go find your own shenanigans. I'm going to have a short list of shenanigans just because of time. Yeah, it's just going to be a really short list of shenanigans that you can play to really just piss off your opponent really bad. And these are mainly aura effects. And so the first one that always comes to mind right now is the Science Police Officer. And if you spread your characters out right, you can just blanket the map with their effect if you place them right. You can just make the pure center of the map completely under the effect of the Science Police Officer, and there's nothing your opponent can do about it. Now, protecting your Science Police Officer is a whole different other story, but that is an option that is available right now, and I think a lot of people might underestimate Science Police Officer at low points. At higher point games, oh gosh, it becomes ridiculous of what can be done with that aura effect compounded with Tellus. Because you have an 8 aura around them, an 8 aura around every character that's within 4 squares of Tellus, including Tellus himself and everybody on the fringe. So play properly, you can shut down a map. Because you have to look at it like this. You have a gap of 4, so that 4 squares around Tellus is locked down. Okay, and I'm just saying perfect formation, people. Okay, so that 4 squares around Tellus is locked down. So then we have 8 more squares out from there. So that puts us at 20 across and then 20 wide. That means like once they step, if you're in the center of the map, the only safe place is your starting area. So there's a lot of strong stuff with that I just like find ridiculous. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, another one that I feel is really good. I think she's from like Captain. Oh no, yeah, she's from Captain America. It's the one that puts down. She puts down Smoke Cloud as a free action, but she would be more under terrain. Gosh, I forgot her name. Oh well. But yeah, she was great. Another one that is a little bit of shenanigans is that if you try to combine Poison Ivy from the was it No Man's Land with Tellus, because now you're able to sort of float some things and cover the map a little bit better. and you're able to, I wouldn't say make her completely everywhere, but it makes it frustrating because you can have those plant tokens in a location to stop, cut off roots, and then use Tellus to cover the rest of the spaces. And I wouldn't say you need to pump up poison ivy, but that is an option. So just, that's just a thought on some options there. Where is he? I'm trying to find him. Oh gosh. Okay, here it is. I found it. All right. Look at Phoenix from Wolverine and the X-Men. Probably not someone that you were really thinking about. Neither was I for a while. But Psionic Purging, Phoenix can use Outwit and Shape Change. She can use Outwit normally, or she can choose a power and counter that power on all opposing characters within range and line of fire. Well, guess what? Tellus allows us to get crazy range, and she already has an 8 range. And so if you pick something like, charge, okay, none of your people have charge. Or, invulnerability. None of your people have invulnerability, because I can pretty much just draw a line of fire through just about everybody that you have. If you're able to give her, through some way or the other, the means to see through stealth, then yeah, she gets more ridiculous with that. Another figure that most people would have forgotten about, except let me rephrase that, they forgot about the other part of her dial because they're so used to using her cheat point, is Enchantress and Witch's Teeth. And it's so good. It's just so good, but people forget about it. Here we go. Storm of Witch's Teeth. Enchantress can use Poison and Quake. When she uses either one, all squares within 2 squares and line of fire are considered adjacent, and damage dealt cannot be reduced below 1. Wow, Tellus. Oh, you went and based one of Tellus's Tellus's friendly teammates. Ooh, Storm of Witch's Teeth really, really is going to make you pay for that. Now, note, you might say, man, 250 points, that's a lot to invest for Storms of Witch's Teeth. Again, I'm just trying to show you like general ideas of shenanigans. And I'm not saying I have the end all, be all list of greatest characters to do with Tellus. I'm just trying to give you a perspective. And again, the biggest thing that we're trying to do is we're just trying to find characters with an aura effect, and just extending that aura effect. Or if they have something that's just annoying, if they're able to draw a line of fire to that character, then, it becomes great. Speaking of which, I remember one older figure that was really annoying. Actually, I think it was like the first Danger. Yeah, I think the first Danger was, yeah. Here we go. All right. Strategic database. Danger can use probability control. Her powers can't be countered, and no poison characters 10 or fewer squares from Danger to which she has a clear line of fire at the beginning. To which she has a clear line of fire at the beginning of any action can have their combat values modified during that action if the modified value would be higher. That's what it is. Yep. So Danger was sort of like an Outsiders, but she's really expensive for what she does now. Like I wouldn't pay 124 points for her, but she shuts some stuff down, and with Tellus, she becomes really a lot stronger. And then I think the most brokenest one so far there's a couple more broke ones, but the brokest one that a lot more people are going to be cursing the name of Tellus is with from AVX with Professor X. That's that. Oh, hey, guess what? To do an action, you have to put in 2 tokens. Like that whole thing with Tellus, I think is someone's going to just cry havoc, and flip the table, because it's way too strong. It's way too strong. So anyway, so those are my thoughts, and I think that Tellus is a great motivator for people to start thinking creatively. Also, I think when we start combining Tellus with team bases and colossals and large vehicles, and saying, hey, I can draw a line of fire from any square on here, any square going out, from any character that's friendly, from any of their squares that's friendly, then we'll have people super pissed, because most of those multi-base figures, multi-square figures, being able to go out, four squares, or even Galactus going out as far as he can, and then saying like, hey, Galactus is the bridge, and to the unknown country, here's Tellus, and then here's Iron Man or whoever else is the cronies back in the back, and it doesn't really matter. I'm just using Tellus or the invisible. I'm just using Galactus or the invisible jet, so that I could just extend my range some more, or the cop car or whatever. Sort of see where I'm going. Anyway, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you like what you heard, you can hit subscribe. Also, big shout outs to Jacob Payne for donating. Thank you, sir. You have now helped me pay off my mic. Yay. So the mic is paid off. And also, I think we have a cool code for all the cool kids for HCO Online. It is LDFFD5RT65RA. Once again, LDFFD5RT65RA. Okay. You can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and said, the Centennial Man cometh. You can find my musings on there, and I'll let you know random stuff if I feel like it. Or it'll be quiet. Either or, it's worth following me on Twitter. Next up, you can email me, startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome. What is your questions for the 100th episode? Let me know. Hit me up before you go. I really want to know what's your questions. So send your questions to me. Just keep them PG. No weird stuff. And I will answer it in my 100th episode. I wish I could do live stream, but I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole different subject. And last but not least, you can check out the blog, startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. You can donate to the show like Jacob did. Yay. You can also, check out, just some ideas that I have here and there. I might end up putting something up here soon, just for the pure fact that the rules changes are still fresh. This is like day one. And if there's anything else, there might be just more on the blog. So, all right, that is it. I'd like to thank you all for listening. And remember, we all have to start over sometime.